On Missing Live, she was going to babysit her grandchildren and even set her video so she wouldn't miss her favourite programme.
But then Joyce Wells simply disappeared, starting off a massive police search.
That was in November last year. Today, can you help us to find her? Good morning, this is Missing Live. We need your help. Every hour in Britain, 20 people are reported missing. Despite widespread appeals by their families and the police, many simply can't be traced. And that is where you come in.
The police and the charity Missing People are with us all morning, and the number to call is on your screen now. It's 0500 700 700. Landline calls are free, but mobile calls may vary.
We're starting today with the very sad news of Jude Richmond and her daughter Millie, who'd been missing since last Sunday. You might already have seen on the news that 2 bodies were found yesterday in a lake near their home. And our heartfelt sympathy goes to Millie's dad, Neil, who we spoke to on the programme yesterday, and of course to the rest of their family.
Thanks, Louise. Terry from Missing People is with us all morning. Terry, have you got some positive news for us?
Yeah, we have actually, with Annette Shredy, who we featured yesterday. She was the grandmother missing from southwest London.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of interesting calls about her, and we've had around about 8 really significant leads. So
that's brilliant. That's
really
excellent.
Good. I mean, we know that she was really interested in travelling, but we also know that she left the key behind, and her passport and her phone weren't taken either. So obviously that's really concerning.
Do we know where these sightings are? Are they local?
Yeah, we had quite a lot in the London area, but we've also had them as far afield as Wales. So that's
brilliant. And London's obviously where she went from. Brilliant. So we'll be catching up with you more later in the programme. We'll have updates on that and other cases later on. If you can help with any of these, then please call Missing People. The number, as ever, is 0500 700 700.
Coming up later, we've got an amazing story about a family reunited. We have a brother and a sister here in the studio who didn't know each other even existed.
Now, 3 months ago, Joyce Wells disappeared. Her grandchildren are still waiting for her to come home.
Joyce Wells has 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren. She is always there for her family.
Mum's a cheerful, sort of happy person, really kind. She'd do anything for anyone.
Mum enjoyed being with the family. She loved it when we'd all get together.
Happy Christmas, everybody!
She'd be the life and soul of the party.
Bubbly, full of fun. Joy by name and joy by nature. Just a lovely person.
Hands up for Christmas pudding. Hands up for Christmas pudding.
Joyce married her husband Bill over 40 years ago. They lived on the south coast and they brought up their daughters in and around Eastbourne.
They were just a loving couple. They used to do everything together. I don't think I ever heard them argue.
But Bill died suddenly in 2002. It was a difficult time for Joyce, and she needed her family around her. So she moved to Bexhill to be closer to her daughters.
She got her life back together again and started enjoying life again, really.
She'd go swimming, she'd do her line dancing, she'd go bowling. She had a full, really full, busy life.
She was very much involved with the family, loved being with them, loved helping, helped my daughter babysit when I couldn't do so.
Mum would be round here with shopping and coming to do the ironing and helping out with the kids, and just always, with a smile on her face.
On Friday, the 21st of November last year, Nikki calls her mum.
I said, oh, do you want to come over for some dinner either Saturday or Sunday? Mum said, oh, I can't come tomorrow because she was babysitting for Carol, but she said, oh, I'd love to come Sunday. Very normal phone call.
The next evening, Joyce is expected at her younger daughter Carol's house.
On the Saturday, I started phoning Mum about 4 o'clock just to tell her that yes, that she could come round about 7 for babysitting, and there was no reply.
Over the next 2 hours, Carol keeps phoning her mum.
About 6:45, I didn't really know what to do, to get ready to go out or not, so I thought, oh, I'll pop round to Mum's and just make sure she's okay. I went in and called her name, but no reply. So initially I went straight upstairs to have a look in her bedroom. She wasn't in there. So I went downstairs and started looking around in the there's like a lounge diner downstairs, and still no sign of Mum. The curtains were all wide open, which was quite worrying because normally Mum would draw them as soon as it got to dusk.
So it seems Joyce hasn't been at home for hours. Carol phones Nikki to see if she knows where their mum could be.
I wondered if she'd gone out with my auntie. You know, maybe she'd gone out in the car, had an accident or broken down or something, I don't know.
But Joyce isn't with her sister-in-law. Carol notices her mum hasn't taken anything with her.
I'd spotted that Mum's bag was at home, and I'd had a look through, and in her handbag there was her purse and all her credit cards and chequebook. It looked like Mum, if she had gone out, she'd gone out without anything. I just got more and more worried by the moment. But you've got so many things going through your head.
Carol immediately calls the police. Coming up, a neighbour thinks he recognises Joyce walking towards a car on her street.
I saw her go across the road, but she walked round the front of the car as if she was going to get in the passenger side, but I didn't actually see her get in. I'm pretty sure it was her.
Now, that was only 3.5 months ago. Where has Joyce gone? If you think you've seen her, please call Missing People. The number is 0500 700 700. And Joyce's daughter and her sister-in-law will join us later in the studio.
Now, police in North Wales need your help in this search for this man. It's Barry John George from Llangefni, who's now been missing for more than 2 months. He's 28, about 5'9" tall, of average build, and he's got short brown hair, blue eyes and a tattoo of a swallow on his right hand. He was last seen leaving Gwynedd Hospital in Bangor at 7 p.m. on Sunday, January the 11th. If you've seen Barry or know where he might be, then please call Missing People. The number is on your screen now.
Now, let's take you to the story of a young man who, by his early 20s, had his own house and his own car. His life was pretty well sorted, so why and when did it all go wrong?
Richard Clark is from Leeds. As a little boy, he would often come to this city park with Paula, his little sister. Richard's now been missing for over 5 years. His mum and Paula remember the days they'd come here to Roundhay.
It's special to me because we did spend a lot of time here. Like I say, we were always together, and fishing was probably one of the main things we did together. It was quiet, it was fun at the time. I was with my brother, and it was just nice to be with him.
Yeah. You were really close, weren't you? Yeah.
I love him so much, and
we miss you, Richard.
Yeah.
Richard is 5 years older than Paula.
We always hung around together, we were always out and about. We used to go to a place called Down Celtics, and we also used to go down there for hours playing games and stealing pears from somebody else's apple tree and pear tree and things like that. But yeah, we had a lovely childhood, it was fun.
Even after they'd both left home, Richard looked after his little sister.
It was lovely, it really was. Always looking out, making sure I was all right. He'd always, when I had my first flat, he'd come down and he'd say, am I all right, blah, 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 and I'd be, yes. And then for weeks after I'd gone, I'd be picking something out of the cupboard and I'd find some money where it's stashed, so he always looked after me that way.
Richard was really independent. He worked for a double glazing firm and was saving money for his future.
When I found out that he'd bought his house, I was so proud because he had to save up a deposit and he'd held down a good job, you know. And I'll never forget that, never.
He was happy in his nice little space. I think he felt independent. He's got his own job, he pays his bills, everything was fine. He used to go up quite a lot. We used to just knock on the door and he'd let us in and he'd be fine.
When Paula had her own family, she and Richard started drifting apart.
I didn't see as much of him as I would have liked, and then it just turned from going up weekly to monthly and then every 6 monthly and things like that.
Richard was living alone and his family were beginning to worry about him.
He was doing steroids and bodybuilding. So I had a word with Richard, explained to him all the side effects, and that Paula was really distressed. You know, she loved her brother, she didn't want anything happening to him.
Even though he didn't see his family very often, when his sister went round to see him, she noticed a big change in Richard.
It wasn't a frightening aggression, it was just a firm aggression that you feel like, oh, we shouldn't have come today. And then he was getting quieter and quieter, and I know he was smoking cannabis and he was getting very paranoid, and you could actually see in his behaviour.
Richard, it seemed, was becoming a recluse. Over the next year, he stopped answering phone calls. Then, in December 2005, worried they'd lost touch, Paula decided to go round to see her brother.
I went up on Christmas and found that his house was up for sale, which I thought was quite strange because he's the kind of person that I thought once he'd got a house he'd stay there forever, and then we later found out that it'd actually been repossessed, and for somebody who worked to pay the bill, that was totally out of character.
Coming up, months after Richard is reported missing, does he turn up in the city centre?
Somebody went into Milgath police station in the middle of Leeds and said, I think I've been reported missing.
More on that story later. Meanwhile, if you can help for the search for Richard, please call Missing People on 0500 700 700. Terry from Missing People is still with us. Terry, what's been coming in?
Well, quite interesting actually. It's been really encouraging. We've had calls about David Harris. We featured him yesterday, missing from South Wales. He had the distinctive tattoos. We've had 4 possible sightings of him across the UK. But what we'd like to say really is more information so that we can link what we've got already.
Yeah, absolutely. Those tattoos actually are very interesting. We've got a Mackenzie, we've got a paw, and there's a Chinese symbol on the back of his neck. So they are quite distinctive. People could recognise them if they see them in the street.
Hopefully they will, and obviously that will confirm, you know, really more or less whether it's him or not.
Anyone else?
We have, actually. Yesterday we featured Michael Bell. He was missing from the Isle of Skye, a long-term case, missing 26 years ago. And what's quite interesting, we have had quite a few calls about him, 18 possible sightings. Now, obviously you have to bear that in mind, it's such a long case, but we're going to pass those to police.
Brilliant. Well, 18 potential sightings for a case that's 26 years old. Obviously, like you say, they're going to have to follow him up, but that's very, very encouraging. Well, Terry, we're going to be talking to you later on in the programme. Hopefully you'll be giving us more good news just like that. Thank you very much.
Still to come today on Missing Live, a family reunited. Meet Anne, a woman who for her whole life believed she was an only child, abandoned by her mother during the Second World War. The truth was very different, and it's changed her life.
Certainly was. That's a great story, so stick around for that. And don't forget, if you know of a family that has been reunited with a missing person, you can email us here at Missing Live. The email address is missing.live@bbc.co.uk.
Now let's go back to Joyce Wells. You remember last November she set her video to record her favourite TV show, but then she didn't turn up to babysit her young grandchildren. Soon though, there was a vital clue. Joyce Wells lives on the East Sussex coast in Bexhill. After she was widowed 6 years ago, she moved to live closer to her 2 daughters. She relies on the support of her family and does everything she can for them.
Mum would be round here with shopping and coming to do the ironing and helping out with the kids, and just always, you know, with a smile on her face.
She was absolutely fantastic with children. They warmed to her. She was like a magnet. They were very much drawn to her.
November last year. It's a normal weekend. On the Saturday evening, Joyce is supposed to be babysitting for her grandchildren, but she doesn't turn up.
It was very odd behaviour. You know, Mum would normally have contacted one of us to say, oh, I'm going somewhere, or I'll be late, or, you know, she wouldn't just go off. She'd never done anything like this before.
What could have happened to Joyce? Sussex police open a missing person investigation.
The indications are that Joyce did go to bed during Friday evening, but obviously we don't know what time she left the house.
Then Carol discovers a number of things in her mum's house that seem to indicate she had no intention of going missing.
When we were having a search through the following day after she'd disappeared, we found all the Christmas cards that she'd bought for the grandchildren. She'd bought them on the Thursday when she went shopping with her friend to Eastbourne. The other odd things about this is we found a shopping list that she'd written out. And I saw this list initially of all these names and didn't mean a thing to me. But when I showed my auntie, she reckons it's the scores from all the Strictly Come Dancing.
Joyce's video is also set to record her favourite Saturday night programmes. All these things just add to the mystery of Joyce's disappearance.
We're racking our brains thinking what on earth could have happened. And I think, we've considered maybe she woke up, had a stroke or something, and just something had happened overnight and wandered off.
Over the next few weeks, police send out search teams across the Sussex countryside.
Near where Joyce lives is a large area of marshland and farmland. We have had large areas searched by both the police and by volunteer search groups who are specially trained in open ground searching.
The first few weeks, I think we just lived on our nerves. We just sort of kept going, Nikki and I.
The local newspaper, did a piece on Mum, and we were really hopeful.
Somebody does come forward saying they think they saw Joyce on that Saturday, November the 22nd.
Joyce lived on the Pepersham estate, and the sighting was at 6:20 in the morning on Saturday 22nd November in St Mary's Lane. Her probable route would be along Pepersham Lane, out onto Restwood Road. We should then follow up into Sidley and along up to St Mary's Lane. So we reviewed the CCTV from 4 a.m. that morning through till about 7 a.m.
Despite going through all the footage recorded in the Bexhill area, the police find nothing. For Joyce's family, it's difficult spending Christmas without her. Then, in January this year, 2 months after Joyce disappeared, there's another potential sighting. DC Stewart needs to find out more.
We're here to visit a neighbour of Miss Joyce Wells to confirm a sighting that he's reported in, to clarify the information he has and see if that can further our investigation as to where she might be.
David Martin lives near Joyce and thinks he remembers seeing her talking to a man in a car on the morning she disappeared.
I think it was kind of dark blue, and I kind of thought it probably an Astra. I saw this woman, I guess it was around 8:30. I saw her go across the road, but she walked around the front of the car as if she was going to get in the passenger side, but I didn't actually see her get in.
How sure are you that it was her that you saw?
Well, when I recollect, I'm pretty sure it was her.
Did Joyce get into a car that morning? If so, where did it go?
It could be very important. Obviously, we're going to have to try and identify who this blue car belongs to and the reason for it being in the road, and if they did indeed have any contact with Joyce on that day.
The last few months have been the most difficult time for Joyce's family.
I've got a 4-year-old who didn't really have too much of an idea of what was going on. She knew obviously that all of a sudden Grandma wasn't around and wasn't picking her up from school. And one day she said to me, "Oh, I know Grandma's lost," and that sort of broke my heart. I didn't really know, what to say to her really.
We used to speak about twice a week. We used to see each other every week. Just hear a little voice saying, "Hello Viv, Joy here." I can just hear her, it was just part of my life.
As a family, we've been coping because we've got each other. I miss just not being able to talk to her whenever I want to on the phone. She's just always there for us, and I just miss that.
I wake up some mornings and think, gosh, what if we never know what has happened? Which is just horrible, the thought of that. It really is.
Well, joining us here in the studio are Joyce's sister-in-law, Viv Barlow, and her daughter, Carol Cratham. Morning to you. Thanks very much for coming in. It seems like an extraordinary mystery, doesn't it? I know you said that many things go through your mind, but what do you think could have possibly happened to her?
We really haven't got a clue. We've gone through lots of different scenarios, but there's just nothing obvious, and the police have searched extensively, and we just really haven't got a clue.
And from what you said, it seemed clear that she was making plans about Christmas, all sorts of things, wasn't she?
Yes, yeah, she had a really busy sort of lead up to Christmas. On the Saturday evening, she was supposed to be babysitting for me. Then on the Sunday, she was going to my sister's. On the Monday, she had her sister-in-law coming over for lunch. And then she was planning a visit with you, wasn't she, to Ostend the following week, and just lots of things going on. And then she would have been due to come to our house on Christmas Day.
Yeah. You've known her for many years.
Yes, 48 years.
What's she like?
Oh, bubbly, very warm, loving, very family orientated. Just good fun to be with.
And what was she like in the days leading up to going missing? Was there anything that seemed untoward?
No, everything was fine. She'd been for dinner at our house on the Sunday before, and she'd been absolutely normal. We'd had a lovely Sunday afternoon and lovely roast dinner. And then I'd seen her on the Wednesday evening when she'd picked my children up from school and looked after them until I finished work. And then on the Thursday, she'd been shopping in Eastbourne with a friend, so spent the whole day with a friend and acted quite normally. And then on the Friday, the day before, she'd had her hair cut in the morning, and then in the afternoon she'd played a game of try-on-my-nose with a neighbour.
Right, so she's very busy, isn't she? She's also a fantastic granny.
Brilliant, absolutely fantastic.
And she even looks after your grandchildren as well.
Yes, she has looked after my grandson on occasions when I couldn't do it. And he adores her, yeah.
And how are the children coping? Because it's difficult for them not knowing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, they've been good. Obviously, yeah, it has been hard for them, and I think initially, they didn't know what was going on. They've all reacted differently. But, we've tried to keep everything normal, really, and they do ask every so often, where Grandma is, and there's not much we can say, really.
Now, we're showing people, of course, her photo. If they spotted her, what should they sort of be looking out for, do you think? How would you recognise her? How do you think you'd recognise her? Is there anything you could tell people?
She's quite small. She's about just over 5'2".
5'2", yeah.
Yes. Just sort of average build, really. Greyish hair. She did have her hair cut on the day before she disappeared, and apparently it was cut a little bit shorter. We haven't seen the haircut.
And just tell us exactly the areas that she was kind of most fond of.
Well, she obviously visited a lot of places in Bexhill. She would be around about in Bexhill a lot. She also used to get the bus to Eastbourne fairly regularly, and also into Hastings.
So all those places,
yes,
if people have seen her, you'd like them to get in touch. OK, well, listen, best of luck with your search. Thank you very much for coming in to talk to us this morning. If you know where Joyce might be, or if you know anything at all that could help in that search, please call Missing People, and the number, as always, is 0500 700 700.
And Detective Inspector Owen Poplar is in charge of the search for Joyce. Thanks for joining us this morning. So, how is the investigation going?
Yes, well, it's a very odd case, and we've yet to find any leads to progress this inquiry further, to be honest.
So how did you react, you as the police, when she first went missing then?
On the weekend she went missing, the weather was atrocious, and we concentrated on a massive search of the downland near her home, and also an extensive house-to-house inquiries with searches of gardens and sheds, etc., in case she'd injured herself nearby and was stuck in there. And then we progressed on there. We've secured a lot of CCTV and a lot of general footwork inquiries, such as house to house and other areas where there's been potential sightings.
And potential sightings?
Yes.
Anything from those?
Nothing from those at all, and a lot of the financial checks have come back negative as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, we've seen from the film, she seemed so happy just before Christmas, so was there anything to suggest she was going to go?
Not at all. In fact, contrary to that, she had a haircut on the Friday, and in the hairdressers we know that she was talking about how lucky she was that she was going to be with her grandchildren at Christmas. So actually quite happy and looking forward to it.
Very, very mysterious. Well, we obviously urge everyone to get in contact. She's not in any trouble. We just want to make sure that she's safe and well, and we hope you do call. I'm just getting a note, actually, from Terrier Missing People. We've not had a great deal of calls so far, so if you can help with this or any case, please get in touch now. If you can help with a search for Joyce, so please call Missing People on 0500 700 700. There are people waiting to take your call now, and you really could help reunite Joyce with her family.
This is Owen Walker, and the Metropolitan Police are asking for your help to find him. He's 57 years old, about 6 feet tall, slim, and very distinctive this. He walks with a limp. He was last seen in Swinnerton Street in Hackney. There it is, it might jog your memory, and he was reporting missing on the 3rd of this month. Now, his sister has spoken to him since then. She had a telephone conversation with Owen just last week, but he wouldn't say where he was. She said he sounded confused and upset, and obviously his family are very worried. So if you can help find them, locate Owen, do call Missing People on 0500 700 700.
Now, earlier we told you the story of Richard Clark from Leeds, missing since January 2006. Soon, there was a very unusual development in the search.
Richard Clark grew up in Leeds with his younger sister Paula.
We always hung around together, we were always out and about. It was lovely, it really was. Always looking out, making sure I was all right.
When he left school, Richard held down a good job and bought his own house. But by his 20s, he saw less of his sister. In late 2005, she went up to see him and found his house was up for sale.
He's the kind of person that I thought once he'd got a house, he'd stay there forever. And then we later found out that it'd actually been repossessed. And for somebody who worked to pay the bill, that was totally out of character.
In January 2006, Richard was reported missing to West Yorkshire Police. They began their inquiry by talking to his colleagues at the double glazing firm where he worked.
Well, Richard was a glass fitter, but in January 2004, he just stopped turning up. I spoke to his shift manager, and in March 2004, he went round to Richard's address with another colleague. Knocked on the door, Richard answered and said, you know, what's wrong, why aren't you at work? And he said he'd been ill, a bit ill, he'd had a flu and a stomach bug or something like that. And this was on a Friday night, but he said he'd be back on the Monday, but obviously he didn't turn up. And that's the last time anyone from work saw him, really.
Then in August 2006, 7 months after the search for him began, something happens that adds to the mystery of Richard's disappearance.
Somebody went into Millgarth police station in the middle of Leeds and said, I think I've been reported missing. So the person on the desk tried to find out as much as they could. They made a note of who he was and who he said he was. They checked his ID. He had one of the old driving licences without a picture on, unfortunately.
But the name on the licence was Richard Clark.
They just sent me an email to say this person had been in. So I sent them back the photo that we had of Richard, and he'd said, that's probably him. Couldn't be certain, but it's probably him, because it was an old photo. And he was looking okay, a bit scruffy, but otherwise, you know, fitting well.
The police officer says he looked like he was roughing it. He didn't look clean-shaven or anything, he just looked like he was roughing it somewhere, which isn't Richard at all.
Was it Richard who walked into the police station? That was over 2 years ago, and since then, there've been no more sightings. His mum and sister still hope Richard will walk back into their lives.
Richard's never far from our thoughts, we're always talking about him daily, but it has been a struggle. I've had to be there for my mum to support her a lot.
You know, it's the not knowing that's the hardest. And there isn't a day, Richard, that goes by the pole and I don't talk about you.
I just look at her and I can see she looks like part of us dying. She does.
So, Terry, what do you make of that?
Well, obviously the most important thing here is that the family are just really concerned. They just want a message that he's okay, even if he doesn't want to get in touch himself. You know, any message directly, you know, anything would be great. The most interesting thing, of course, is when he showed up at the police station, or it was potentially him, handing in a driving licence. Unfortunately, there was no photo on that, and he didn't hang around long enough for them to confirm if it was him, but obviously that's quite encouraging if it was.
Now, had it had a photo, it may show a small mark that he's got on his face.
That's
What do you make
right.
of that?
In a couple of photos, he has got a bit of a birthmark near his right eye, but we don't know now whether it actually be that distinctive or not. It may show up, but it may not be there.
It's certainly something to worth looking out for should they think people have seen him in the street. Brilliant, Terry. Thank you very much. And a reminder that if you or someone close to you is experiencing mental health problems, there is help available at the BBC Headroom website. The address is bbc.co.uk/headroom.
Now, do you recognise this person? This is Matthew Dyatt. He's 58 years old. He's 5'9" with long grey hair. He's been missing from Eyemouth in the Scottish borders since February the 17th. Now, he was last seen wearing a blue jacket, a grey or beige jumper and faded blue jeans. He's now been gone a month. If you think you've seen Matthew, please call Missing People on 0500 700 700.
Now, being reunited with a friend or relative who's gone missing is one thing, but imagine discovering an entire family that you never even knew existed. Well, that's exactly what happened to Anne Smee.
All her life, Anne Smee thought her mum had given Anne away when she was born. She was adopted when she was 2. Anne grew up knowing nothing about where she came from.
Well, my brother-in-law asked me to look up my family, and I said it's not really worth it because, as far as I'm concerned, my mother was a spinster and there are no other members of the family.
But Anne did begin looking into her past, and she made a discovery that was to change her life.
I decided to go on to Genes Reunited, and I found her. I found her parents, where they were all from. Then I found out that Mother had died giving birth to me. And then I found that there were 4 other children before me. I thought, this is a bit odd.
So, far from giving her away, Anne's mum had died giving birth to her. Anne now wanted to find her older brothers and sisters who were also orphaned.
I had an email from this lady saying, I think you're my mother's sister. It's strange. Anyway, we continued with the emails, and it was one of my elder sisters. And we agreed to meet.
After her niece got in touch for the first time in her life, Anne met a blood relative, one of her sisters.
For 66 years, there's been nobody. Just my adoptive parents and their sort of family, but I've never had nieces or brothers, sisters, nothing at all. So it was quite amazing. She showed me some photographs, and one of them was of Ron, Doris, herself, and another man who was my brother. And I said, well, who are they? She said, well, that's Ron. He lives somewhere up in the north, but I don't know where. So I thought, oh, well, I'm going to find this chap.
Anne now knew about 3 of her siblings. They'd all been adopted, but there was one person no one knew much about, her brother Ron. She wanted to find him.
She said, but I think he's changed his name because he was adopted, and I think it's Chandler. So after quite a few weeks, I went back onto Genes Reunited looking for Ronald Chandler. Well, of course, it didn't work because no. And I come up with a couple of people said, oh, we've been helping you, and we found a Ronald Chancellor. And I thought, that's pretty similar. And they gave me the name of one in Birmingham and one in Dudley.
the Ronald Chancellor in Dublin wasn't her brother, so she called the one in the Midlands.
I said to him, "Are you Ronald William Chancellor?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Were you born in Guildford in Surrey in 1933? And he said, "Yes." "And was your mother Violet Gladys Maker?" "Yes," he said. I said, "Well," and that's when I said, "I think I'm your younger sister." "Oh," he said, "we knew there was another child, but we weren't sure whether it was a boy or a girl, or whether it lived or died." And then I said, "Well, yes, it's me."
Anne knows that Ron married Doris 50 years ago and they're still together. Months after starting her search, Anne makes the journey from her home in Cornwall to the Midlands. She's making a surprise visit to meet her brother.
Looks like you got visitors tomorrow.
They may be reunited, but the story isn't quite over. Anne and Ron know they have the same mum, but do they share a dad? Anne won't rest until this mystery is solved. What a fantastic story. Well, Anne is with me alongside Ron. Morning to you both.
Morning.
Lovely to see you. You had no idea, did you, that she was going to turn up for your birthday?
No idea whatsoever.
So
No, complete surprise.
What was it like then?
Well, everybody seemed to be panicking and saying we've got visitors. And then I just looked to the side and I saw Anne and immediately knew she was my sister.
What was that like for you, that first moment?
Fantastic, because after, 65 years, you just didn't know you had any family whatsoever.
And now you're getting to know a lot about your past and what happened.
Yes, we know about our grandmother and our great-grandmother. We also know these 6 step-sisters and brothers that we've got.
Now put us out of our misery, because you said that at the end of that there's a bit of a mystery, because you knew that you had the same mum, but you didn't know about your dad.
No, because on my birth certificate I had no father's name whatsoever. And Ron was never sure about the father.
I was never sure, although his name was on my birth certificate. The problem was, when I received his army records, nothing seemed to tie in. And I've always had the impression that I wasn't Charlie's son.
Right.
But it did turn out with the DNA that we were.
So you are full siblings.
We are definitely
full siblings.
brothers and sisters.
And are there similarities? It's a bit of a silly question, I know.
We had no idea,
No.
but we've come.
So you've come almost wearing exactly the same clothes.
Yep.
What other sort of things? Do you have the
We
same?
both like sport.
Right.
Yeah, I was very active in sports. I liked athletics. Ron plays a lot of
I played a lot of football when I was younger.
So we have that side of it, the sporty side.
Excellent.
And we've got photographs of when we're both 18.
Oh, yes.
And if you look at it, we look like twins.
Brilliant.
It's amazing.
You also brought in a photograph, which is really interesting, taken back, and you reckon about 1914.
I think about 1914, yes. About,
This is your grandmother, is that right?
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And you're trying to find out which is your mother in this photo, because you don't know.
We think it's her on
The right.
grandmother's right.
Right,
Because we
okay.
know all the other children.
Okay. Also, you mentioned your dad. You're finding lots of mysterious things about him too, because he went missing himself. Is that right?
Yes, according to his army records, he joined the army. Well, he joined the army when he was 17, just over 17, and did 12 years. And then he came out in 1924 and met, after 6 years, 12, 6 years. He married Elizabeth Harris, a divorcee. And from then on, according to his army records, from 1939 to 1945,
he was with our mother.
He was what? He was somebody else. So in fact, he was married twice.
Yeah, no.
Go on.
He was married once
Yeah.
to Elizabeth Harris, a divorcee, in 1924 until 1943, according to his army records, when he filed divorce papers on his first wife.
Well, it's very complicated, but it's fantastic you're back together. Just really
Yeah.
quickly, if other people are thinking of looking for people, would you recommend
definitely,
it?
Definitely,
You would.
yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for
Thank
that
you.
story. And I know, as you've just told us, there's much more to find out.
Yes, there are. A lot more.
Thank you. If there is a reunion that you think we should know about, drop us a line. Our email is missing.live@bbc.co.uk.
And I'm here with Louise Hewlett from TraceSmart, one of several websites that could help you if you want to find your family just like Anne did. Welcome, thanks for joining us. So, how do these websites work?
Well, the site that they used, you can upload your information, or the site that I use, TraceSmart, you can access electoral roll, birth, death and marriage information, so it's all public information that you can search online in the comfort of your own home.
Perfect. Are they always as successful as Anne?
I'd like to say yes, but some of them do take quite a long time, and as Anne knows, there's a lot more work to do, perhaps. But some searches, you can, find your results instantly and, be in touch with your loved ones.
It does sound very technical. Is it very complicated?
No, not at all. I mean, if you're not used to using a computer, then obviously get someone in the family that might be a bit more proficient, or
And
ask.
very quickly, is it expensive?
Not at all. You can start from like £3.50, or you can get free advice. Advice is free, so just ask for help.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us. It sounds brilliant. And if this has inspired you to do the same as Anne, then there are lots of resources available to you. You can get more information at bbc.co.uk/family history.
In the meantime, here's a reminder of the cases that we really need your help with today. Joyce Wells, she's the lively granny from East Sussex. Now, she's been missing since last November. A neighbour thinks she may have got into a blue car early on the morning of her disappearance. Do you have any more information?
And Richard Clark from Leeds in Yorkshire, in March 2006, someone claiming to be him turned up with his driving licence at a city police station. But was it Richard?
How about this? 28-year-old Barry John George from Bangor in Wales. He's average height with short dark brown hair, blue eyes and a swallow tattoo on his right hand. If you have any knowledge that could help, please call Missing People on 0500 700 700.
Before we go, there's just time for a final update on the calls we've been taking since we came on air. Terry, what have we got?
Well, it's starting to be encouraging. We've had a couple of possible sightings for Joyce Wells, just mentioned now, and Richard Clark as well.
So Joyce Wells is the grandmother from Bexhill that we've just seen. So a few calls on that, brilliant.
A couple of calls
and who's the other one?
Richard Clark. He's hopefully he's the one missing from Leeds. Possibly came into the police.
And already
station.
got calls coming in there.
Already a couple on.
I understand
here.
we're a bit thin on the call, so we want some more. So obviously, if you can help, please get in touch.
That's pretty much it for today. Thank you for those calls so far. On tomorrow's programme, we'll have updates on all our appeals, plus the last known sighting of Elena Shagrova, a popular woman in her 30s from Russia. Here she is. She's coming out of Highgate Underground Station in May last year. Where she went after this, nobody knows.
And the son who thought his dad had died until he saw him on Missing Live. That's all at 9:15 tomorrow. See you then.
That is an amazing story. Join us then. Thanks very much for watching today. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.